As we move forward in our exploration of ancient wisdom, we come to our fourth law, the law of cause and effect. You might have heard this referred to as karma, or the idea that what goes around comes around. But there's more to this law than just good or bad luck. The law of cause and effect states that every action, thought, or word has a consequence. It's like throwing a pebble into a pond. The ripples spread out, affecting more than just the spot where the pebble landed. In the same way, everything we do creates an effect, not just in our own lives, but in the world around us. This law challenges us to think more deeply about our choices. It's easy to act without considering the consequences, especially in the heat of the moment. But the law of cause and effect reminds us that everything we do matters, even the things that seem small or insignificant. Think about it like this. Have you ever had a day where one small thing went wrong in the morning and it seemed to throw off your entire day? Maybe you spilled coffee on your shirt, then you were late for work, then you snapped at a coworker. That's the law of cause and effect in action. One event led to another, creating a chain reaction. But this law isn't just about negative consequences. It works for positive actions too. A simple act of kindness can set off a chain of good events. Maybe you help a stranger with directions, and they're so grateful that they decide to help someone else later that day. Your one act of kindness could end up affecting many people. Understanding this law can be really empowering. It means that we have the ability to shape our lives and the world around us through our actions. Every choice we make is like planting a seed. We might not see the results right away, but eventually that seed will grow into something. Now, it's important to note that this law doesn't work in a simple one-to-one way. Life is complex, and many factors influence what happens to us. It's not like there's a cosmic scorecard keeping track of every good or bad thing we do. Instead, think of it more like creating a general atmosphere or energy in your life. So how can we apply the law of cause and effect in our daily lives? One way is to become more mindful of our actions. Before you do or say something, take a moment to consider, what effect might this have? How might this impact others or myself in the long run? This law also encourages us to take responsibility for our lives. It's easy to blame others or circumstances for our problems. But the law of cause and effect suggests that many of our current situations are the result of our past choices and actions. This doesn't mean we should beat ourselves up over past mistakes. Instead, it's an invitation to learn from the past and make better choices going forward. Another way to work with this law is to practice patience. Sometimes we take actions expecting immediate results, but often the effects of our choices take time to manifest. This law reminds us to trust the process and keep taking positive actions, even if we don't see results right away. The law of cause and effect can also help us break negative patterns in our lives. If you find yourself repeatedly experiencing the same problems, this law would encourage you to look at your own actions and thought patterns. What might you be doing that's contributing to these situations? By identifying and changing these patterns, you can start to create different effects in your life. Remember, this law applies not just to our actions, but to our thoughts and words as well. The way we think and speak creates ripples too. Negative self-talk, for example, can lead to low self-esteem and missed opportunities. On the flip side, positive affirmations and kind words can boost confidence and open doors. One powerful way to apply this law is through the practice of gratitude. By regularly expressing thanks for the good things in your life, you're creating positive causes that can lead to more positive effects. It's like tuning your mind to notice and attract more good things. The law of cause and effect also reminds us of our interconnectedness, linking back to the law of divine oneness we discussed earlier. Our actions don't just affect us, they affect everyone and everything around us. This can inspire us to act with more kindness and consideration, knowing that our choices have far-reaching consequences. As we navigate through life, the law of cause and effect encourages us to be conscious creators of our reality. It reminds us that we have the power to influence our lives and the world around us through our choices, actions, and even our thoughts. Now let's delve into our fifth ancient law, the law of compensation. This law is closely related to the law of cause and effect, but it adds another layer to our understanding of how the universe works. The law of compensation states that we will always be compensated for our actions and contributions, both positive and negative. It's like the universe has a perfect accounting system, keeping track of everything we put out into the world. This compensation might come in many forms. It could be material rewards, emotional satisfaction, personal growth, or even life lessons. At first glance, this law might sound like it's all about getting rewards for good deeds and punishments for bad ones, but it's actually much more nuanced than that. The law of compensation is more about balance and growth than simple reward and punishment. Think of it like this. When you exercise, you might feel tired or sore afterward. That discomfort is a form of compensation. Your body is responding to the work you've done, but over time, that exercise makes you stronger and healthier. The initial discomfort leads to long-term benefits. In the same way, the law of compensation suggests that everything we experience is contributing to our growth and evolution, even if it doesn't always feel good in the moment. This law challenges us to look at our lives in a new way. Instead of seeing our experiences as random or unfair, we can start to see them as responses to our own energy and actions. This doesn't mean that every specific thing that happens to us is a direct result of something we've done. Life is more complex than that, but it does suggest that the overall quality of our experiences reflects what we've put out into the world. So how can we apply the law of compensation in our daily lives? One way is to focus on giving our best in everything we do. This law suggests that the effort and intention we put into our actions will come back to us in some form. It encourages us to do things not just for immediate rewards, but because giving our best is inherently valuable. For example, if you're at work, the law of compensation would encourage you to do your best not just to get a paycheck or a promotion, but because putting forth your best effort is rewarding in itself. The compensation for this might come in the form of personal satisfaction, increased skills, or opportunities you hadn't anticipated. Another way to work with this law is to pay attention to the different forms of compensation in your life. Sometimes we focus so much on material rewards that we miss other forms of compensation. Did you help a friend and feel a sense of fulfillment? That's a form of compensation. Did you face a challenge that taught you an important lesson? That's compensation too. The law of compensation also invites us to be patient. Just like with the law of cause and effect, the compensation for our actions doesn't always come immediately or in the form we expect. Sometimes the benefits of our actions might not be apparent for years. This law encourages us to trust the process and keep putting positive energy into the world, knowing that it will come back to us in some form. This law can be particularly comforting when we're going through difficult times. It reminds us that our struggles are not in vain. They're contributing to our growth and will be compensated in some way. Maybe you're working hard on a project that isn't seeing immediate success. The law of compensation would say that your effort is not wasted. You're gaining experience, developing persistence, and possibly opening doors you can't even see yet. It's important to note that the law of compensation isn't about keeping score or only doing good things to get rewards. Instead, it's about recognizing that everything we do contributes to the overall quality of our lives and the world around us. It encourages us to act with integrity and give our best, not because we'll get something in return, but because that's the kind of energy we want to put into the world. This law also relates to how we treat others. It suggests that the way we treat people will be reflected back to us in some way. This doesn't mean that if you're nice to someone, that specific person will be nice back. But it does suggest that treating others with kindness and respect creates a general atmosphere of kindness in your life. The law of compensation can also help us deal with feelings of unfairness or injustice. Sometimes it might seem like others are getting ahead unfairly, or that your own good deeds are going unnoticed. This law reminds us that everyone's path is different, and the compensation for our actions might not always be obvious or immediate. As we apply this law, it's crucial to maintain a balance. It's not about obsessing over every action and its potential return. Rather, it's about cultivating an awareness of the interconnectedness of our actions and experiences. and trusting in the natural balance of the universe. As we continue our journey through these ancient laws, we come to our sixth principle, the law of polarity. This law might challenge your perception of the world in some surprising ways. The law of polarity states that everything in the universe has an opposite. Hot and cold, light and dark, good and bad. These are all examples of polarity. But this law goes deeper than just recognizing that opposites exist. It suggests that these opposites are actually two extremes of the same thing. Think about a thermometer. Hot and cold aren't two separate things. They're different degrees of temperature. In the same way, the law of polarity suggests that things we often see as opposites are actually just different points on the same spectrum. This idea can be pretty mind-bending when you start to apply it to your life. For example, love and hate aren't two completely separate emotions. They're intense feelings at opposite ends of the same spectrum. That's why it's possible for love to turn into hate, or for us to have conflicting feelings about someone we care about. Understanding the law of polarity can be really powerful because it shows us that nothing is fixed. If everything has an opposite, then any situation can be changed. No matter how bad things seem, the potential for the opposite, for something good, always exists. Let's look at how this might work in everyday life. Maybe you're dealing with a problem at work. It's causing you stress and frustration. The law of polarity would remind you that within this problem lies the potential for its opposite, a solution, an opportunity, or a valuable lesson. The challenge is to shift your perspective to find that opposite pole. This law also encourages us to look for balance in our lives. If we go too far to one extreme, we might find ourselves swinging to the opposite extreme to compensate. Have you ever been on a super strict diet, only to end up binge eating later? That's the law of polarity in action. Instead, this law would encourage us to find a middle ground, a balance between the extremes. So how can we apply the law of polarity in our daily lives? One way is to practice looking for the positive in negative situations. This doesn't mean ignoring problems or pretending everything is fine when it's not. Instead, it's about recognizing that within every challenge lies an opportunity for growth or positive change. For example, if you lose your job, it's natural to feel upset and worried, but the law of polarity would remind you that this situation also holds the potential for positive change. Maybe this is an opportunity to pursue a career you're more passionate about or to develop new skills. Another way to work with this law is to be mindful of extremes in our thoughts and actions. When we find ourselves thinking in all or nothing terms, we can remind ourselves that there's usually a middle ground. This can help us approach situations more balanced and see more options. The law of polarity can also help us in our relationships. Often, the things that annoy us most about others are reflections of parts of ourselves we don't like or haven't accepted. By recognizing this, we can use our reactions to others as opportunities for self-reflection and growth. This law also relates to our emotions. It suggests that if we're feeling a strong negative emotion, the potential for the opposite positive emotion is also present. For instance, if you're feeling very afraid about something, you could also frame it as excitement. Both fear and excitement involve anticipation of the future. They're different poles of the same energy. One powerful way to apply the law of polarity is through the practice of gratitude. When we're going through tough times, actively looking for things to be grateful for can help us tap into the positive pole of our situation. It doesn't change the circumstances, but it can dramatically change how we experience them. The law of polarity also invites us to be more accepting of the full range of our experiences. Often we try to avoid negative experiences and cling to positive ones. But this law reminds us that both are necessary parts of life. Just as we need both inhaling and exhaling to breathe, we need both positive and negative experiences to grow and appreciate life fully. In our quest for personal growth, the law of polarity encourages us to embrace rather than resist challenges. If we understand that every difficulty contains the seed of its opposite, an opportunity or blessing, we can approach life's ups and downs with more equanimity and optimism. Remember, the law of polarity doesn't mean that everything is relative or that there's no difference between right and wrong. Instead, it's a tool for understanding the world and our experiences in a more nuanced way. It reminds us that life isn't black and white, but filled with shades of gray, and that within those shades lie endless possibilities for change and growth. As we approach the final law in our exploration of ancient wisdom, we come to the law of rhythm. This principle offers a profound insight into the nature of life and the universe, and it can be a powerful tool for navigating our personal journeys. The law of rhythm states that everything in the universe moves in cycles. Just as we have the cycles of day and night, the seasons of the year, and the ebb and flow of tides, our lives also follow rhythmic patterns. This law teaches us that nothing stays the same forever. Everything is in a constant state of flow, moving between different states or poles. Think about your own life. You've probably noticed that there are times when everything seems to be going well, and other times when you face more challenges. You might have periods of high energy and productivity, followed by times when you feel the need to rest and recharge. These are all examples of the law of rhythm at work. Understanding this law can be incredibly comforting, especially during difficult times. When we're going through a tough period, the law of rhythm reminds us that this too shall pass. Just as winter always gives way to spring, challenging times will eventually shift to more positive ones. But this law isn't just about passively waiting for things to change. It's about recognizing these natural cycles and learning to work with them rather than against them. By understanding the rhythms in our lives, we can make better decisions about when to push forward and when to step back and recharge. So how can we apply the law of rhythm in our daily lives? One way is to start paying attention to the cycles and patterns in your own life. Do you notice that you tend to be more creative at certain times of day? Or that you go through phases of being more social and then needing more alone time? By recognizing these patterns, you can plan your activities to align with your natural rhythms. Another way to work with this law is to practice acceptance. When you're in a down phase, instead of fighting against it or feeling bad about it, you can recognize it as a natural part of your rhythm. Maybe it's a time for rest, reflection, or planning. By accepting and working with these phases, you can make the most of them instead of wasting energy resisting them. The law of rhythm also encourages us to take a longer view of our lives. When we're in the middle of a difficult situation, it can feel like it will last forever. But this law reminds us that change is constant. By keeping this bigger picture in mind, we can maintain hope and perspective during challenging times. This law can be particularly helpful when it comes to goal setting and personal growth. Instead of expecting constant linear progress, we can recognize that growth often happens in cycles. There might be times of rapid advancement followed by periods of consolidation or even seeming setbacks. By understanding this, we can be more patient with ourselves and trust the process of our personal evolution. The law of rhythm also applies to our emotions. It's natural for our moods and feelings to fluctuate. Instead of trying to maintain a constant state of happiness, which isn't realistic or even healthy, we can learn to ride the waves of our emotional rhythms. This doesn't mean being at the mercy of our emotions, but rather acknowledging them, understanding their cyclical nature, and not getting too attached to any one state. One powerful way to apply this law is through the practice of mindfulness. By staying present and observing our experiences without judgment, we can become more attuned to the natural rhythms in our lives. This awareness can help us make better decisions about how to use our energy and resources. The law of rhythm also has implications for how we view success and failure. Instead of seeing these as fixed states, we can recognize them as part of a larger cycle. A setback doesn't define us. It's just part of the rhythm of growth and learning. Similarly, success isn't a final destination, but part of an ongoing cycle of achievement and new challenges. In our relationships, understanding the law of rhythm can help us navigate the natural ups and downs that occur. All relationships go through phases, and recognizing this can help us stay committed during challenging times and not take the good times for granted. This law also connects back to some of the other laws we've discussed. Like the law of polarity, it reminds us that opposites are interconnected. Like the law of correspondence, It shows us how patterns repeat at different levels of existence. And like all the laws, it emphasizes the interconnected and dynamic nature of the universe. As we work with the law of rhythm, we're invited to develop a more fluid and adaptable approach to life. Instead of rigidly trying to control everything, we can learn to flow with the natural rhythms of our existence, trusting in the process of life, even when we can't see the whole picture. As we come to the end of our exploration of these 7 ancient laws, it's important to take a moment to reflect on how they all work together to provide a comprehensive worldview. These laws aren't separate principles to be applied individually, but rather different facets of a unified understanding of the universe and our place in it. The law of divine oneness reminds us that everything is interconnected. The law of vibration shows us that everything is in constant motion, vibrating at different frequencies. The law of correspondence tells us that patterns repeat at all levels of existence. The law of cause and effect demonstrates that our actions have consequences. The law of compensation assures us that we will always be compensated for our efforts and experiences. The law of polarity reveals that everything has its opposite, which are actually 2 extremes of the same thing. And finally, the law of rhythm shows us that everything moves in cycles. Together, these laws paint a picture of a universe that is dynamic, interconnected, and full of potential. They challenge us to see beyond the surface level of our experiences and recognize the deeper patterns and principles at work in our lives and in the world around us. By understanding and applying these laws, we can navigate life with greater wisdom and intention. We can approach challenges with more resilience, knowing that they are part of larger cycles and contain the seeds of their own solutions. We can take responsibility for our lives, recognizing the power of our thoughts and actions to shape our reality. And we can find greater peace and fulfillment by aligning ourselves with these universal principles. However, it's important to remember that understanding these laws is just the beginning. The real work lies in applying them consistently in our daily lives. This isn't always easy. It requires mindfulness, patience, and a willingness to challenge our habitual ways of thinking and acting. But the potential rewards are immense, a life lived with greater awareness, purpose, and harmony. As you move forward from here, I encourage you to reflect on these laws and how they might apply in your own life. Look for examples of them at work in your experiences. Experiment with applying them in different situations. And most importantly, be patient and compassionate with yourself as you learn to work with these powerful principles. Remember, this ancient wisdom has stood the test of time because it speaks to fundamental truths about the nature of reality and human experience. By engaging with these laws, you're participating in a timeless tradition of seeking to understand and align with the deeper currents of life. Thank you for joining me on this journey of exploration. May these 7 laws serve as guideposts on your path, helping you to unlock your potential and create a life of meaning, purpose, and fulfillment. The wisdom is now in your hands. How will you use it to shape your reality? Now that we've explored all 7 laws, you might be wondering, how do I actually use these in my daily life? That's exactly what we're going to dive into now. Remember, these laws aren't just interesting ideas, they're practical tools for living a more fulfilled and purposeful life. Let's start with a simple practice you can begin right away. Each morning when you wake up, take a few minutes to set your intention for the day. Think about the law of vibration and choose the energy you want to put out into the world. Maybe you want to focus on kindness, productivity, or creativity. By consciously choosing your vibrational state, you're already shaping your day in a powerful way. Throughout your day, try to stay aware of the law of cause and effect. Before you speak or act, take a moment to consider the potential consequences. This doesn't mean you should overthink everything, but simply be more mindful of the ripple effects your actions might have. When you face challenges or setbacks, remember the law of polarity. Within every problem lies the seed of its solution. Instead of getting discouraged, ask yourself, what's the opportunity here? What can I learn from this? This shift in perspective can turn obstacles into stepping stones. The law of rhythm can be especially helpful when you're feeling stuck or overwhelmed. Recognize that life moves in cycles, and if you're in a down phase, an up phase will follow. Use the down times for reflection, planning, and self-care, knowing that they're preparing you for your next phase of growth. When it comes to your goals and dreams, apply the law of correspondence. Remember, as within, so without. Work on cultivating the mindset and qualities of someone who has already achieved what you're aiming for. Act as if you're already the person you want to become. The law of compensation can guide you in your work and relationships. Give your best in everything you do, not for immediate rewards, but because you understand that your efforts will be compensated in some form. This might be through personal growth, new opportunities, or in ways you can't even imagine yet. Finally, let the law of divine oneness inform how you interact with others and the world around you. Treat everyone and everything with respect and kindness, knowing that we're all interconnected. This can lead to a profound shift in how you experience life. Here's a practical exercise to help you integrate all these laws. At the end of each day, take a few minutes to reflect. How did you see these laws at work in your experiences? Where could you have applied them more effectively? What insights or opportunities did you gain? This daily reflection can help you become more attuned to these universal principles and how they operate in your life. Remember, working with these laws is a practice. It takes time and patience. Some days you'll feel like you're really in flow with them, and other days might be more challenging. That's okay. It's all part of the process. The key is to keep coming back to these principles, allowing them to guide your choices and shape your perspective. I remember when I first encountered these 7 laws. At the time, I was going through a particularly challenging period in my life. I felt stuck in a job I didn't enjoy. My relationships were strained, and I was struggling with anxiety and self-doubt. At first, these laws seemed like abstract concepts that had little to do with my real-world problems. But as I began to study and apply them, I started to see subtle shifts in my life. The law of vibration encouraged me to focus on the energy I was putting out into the world. Instead of dwelling on my frustrations, I started each day by setting a positive intention. The law of correspondence made me realize that my outer circumstances were reflecting my inner state. I began to work on my self-confidence and self-worth, and gradually I noticed changes in how others responded to me. The law of cause and effect and the law of compensation inspired me to give my best effort in everything I did, even in the job I didn't like. To my surprise, this led to new opportunities and eventually a career change that aligned more closely with my passions. When I faced setbacks, the law of polarity reminded me to look for the hidden opportunities. The law of rhythm helped me understand that challenging times were not permanent, but part of a larger cycle. Perhaps most profoundly, the law of divine oneness shifted my entire perspective on life. I began to see how everything and everyone was interconnected. This fostered a sense of compassion and understanding that improved my relationships and gave me a greater sense of purpose. It wasn't an overnight transformation. There were plenty of ups and downs, moments of doubt, and times when I struggled to apply these principles. But over time, I found that these laws provided a framework for understanding life's challenges and a roadmap for personal growth. Today, while I'm far from perfect, I can honestly say that these laws have transformed my life. They've given me tools to navigate difficulties, a deeper sense of connection to the world around me, and a greater ability to create the life I want to live. I share this story not to boast, but to illustrate that these laws are not just philosophical concepts. They're practical tools that can have a real impact on your life, just as they did on mine. Your journey will be unique to you, but I believe that if you approach these laws with an open mind and a willingness to apply them consistently, you too can experience their transformative power. As we conclude our exploration of these 7 ancient laws, it's important to reflect on how this timeless wisdom can enrich our modern lives. In a world that often feels chaotic and unpredictable, these laws offer a framework for understanding the deeper patterns and principles at work in the universe and in our personal experiences. The law of divine oneness reminds us of our interconnectedness in an age where division and isolation are all too common. The law of vibration shows us the power of our thoughts and energy in shaping our reality. The law of correspondence encourages us to look within for the source of outer change. The law of cause and effect teaches us to be mindful of our actions and their consequences. The law of compensation assures us that our efforts and experiences are always balanced in the grand scheme of things. The law of polarity helps us find opportunity in adversity and maintain perspective. And the law of rhythm gives us hope and patience as we navigate life's ups and downs. Together, these laws provide a holistic approach to living that can bring greater harmony, purpose, and fulfillment to our lives. They challenge us to take responsibility for our experiences, to see beyond surface appearances, and to align ourselves with the fundamental principles of the universe. But remember, understanding these laws is just the beginning. The real magic happens when we consistently apply them in our daily lives. It's a journey of continuous learning and growth, with each day offering new opportunities to deepen our understanding and refine our practice. As you move forward from here, I encourage you to stay curious and open-minded. Experiment with these laws in your own life. Pay attention to how they manifest in your experiences. Be patient with yourself as you learn to work with them more consciously. And most importantly, remember that you're not alone on this journey. These laws have guided seekers of wisdom for thousands of years, and they continue to offer insights and inspiration to people around the world today. By engaging with this ancient wisdom, you're connecting yourself to a timeless tradition of human growth and understanding. My hope is that these 7 laws will serve as powerful tools on your path, helping you to navigate life's challenges with greater ease, to recognize the opportunities for growth in every experience, and to create a life that truly reflects your highest potential.